Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the Thursday, April 20th, 2023, 4 p.m. Board of Health meeting. I'd like to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded by video and audio. And those of you who are joining by Zoom, please use your raise hand button when you want to ask a question, say who you are, and myself or Roberto will get to you as soon as we can. We do have Malcolm joining us by Zoom. So on the votes, we'll have to do roll call, I believe, right? Meredith will probably be here shortly. Is there anything that's not on the agenda out in the general public that anybody would like to talk about? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. We're just going to move a couple things up. I think we'll go to Roberto's. You want to do the minutes first? Review of the minutes, January 19th, 23. Any additions or corrections?
I'm good. Yeah, it was fine.
I get a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
I get a second.
Second.
All by roll call vote. Malcolm McNabb,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Harry McKenna,
Yes.
and Steve Isco says yes. Go to director's report.
Yeah, that should be good. So a few updates. We just recently hired a new public information officer. And she should be starting anytime soon. We've stolen the office manager from the housing office to be this new person. Haley is her name. So keep an eye out for emails on that, because one of the things that we're going to be doing is updating the website. Part of that will be, we're hoping for it to be soon like a meet your board type thing, where they'll reach out to each one of you, ask for like 1 or 2 sentences about like what your background is and when your term expires, just to be a little bit more transparent with who our board is and how we work. They're looking to redo the website almost in its entirety. Our health department and board of health one, which is going to be really good, adding FAQ sections by topic, which is short-term rentals, septic systems, food, whole 9 yards, so that it can be a lot easier, so that we can get a lot of the questions answered before they end up here. And then secondly, we have made an offer and has been accepted for a new public health nurse. Her name is Erin Schrader. She will be starting on May 1st. Heather Francis has moved off island, and she will be helping with the transition for the month of May. And then Erin will be taking over fully by the 2nd week of May after that transition. And then lastly, we have had an onslaught of permits this year, as the staff can attest to. It's been very busy in the office, and we're back to normal as far as the comparison goes. So that's really good. And then with that, I think we're good to go. I would suggest we just move to the wells, because it's more of an update.
Okay. We'll go to the well regulations discussion.
So with the well regulations, we did forward them straight to town council after last meeting as requested. We are not allowed to post the hearing until the town council review is complete. As of this morning, I still have not, or as of this afternoon, I still have not received town council's comments on it. So I would suggest that we push the public hearing from the May meeting to the June meeting. If that's amenable to the board, if the board is amenable to that. Once we get to the town council review and their blessing on it to make sure it's legal, I should be able to forward it to the real estate agents, the attorneys on island, and the engineers for their review, as well as we discussed at the last meeting. So I just wanted to know if it's okay to push back the hearing to June.
Is that something we're going to vote on? Or
I think last time it was just consensus, but last time we did specifically say to set it for the May hearing. So we would have to just specifically say that it's June, so that I can put it in the newspaper.
Is everybody?
Mr. Chair, I have no objections.
Okay, then we'll move that meeting till to June.
Okay, so we'll set the public hearing for June 15th, and I'll get that into the newspapers as soon as I hear back from town council. That shouldn't take much longer. And the state has also looked into adopting the EPA standard of PFAS. So we're also just waiting on here on that. But we haven't heard, it's still a little radio silence. And then lastly, the Nantucket Land Council is asking to do a PFAS private well test program. They did ask us to partner with them, which we may not be able, for legal reasons from town council, we may not be able to partner, but we are looking to discuss it with them and hash it out a little bit further.
Would that be done by just sampling? I mean, like,
Yes.
in like
sampling.
a neighborhood, take one or two and just.
So it originally came out to, they originally wanted to push a large scale sampling program using Dr. Peasley's process out of Notre Dame, but that's not a validated process. It hasn't been approved by the EPA or has full validation yet. So it's hitting it's a little bit of a roadblock there. So once that gets worked out, then it would be something that we'd be willing to put our name to, but it's still not a truly validated program. Yeah. Did I catch everything on that, Michael? Yeah. So perfect. So we will be meeting with the land council to talk about this further. Emily, sorry for the microphone. Emily did contact us from the land council, and we will be setting up a meeting to discuss this further. So good news all around, and it's better that we're pushing the hearing back because it can turn this into a much more robust response. So.
Is it okay if I mean, it's a health question and stuff. With the Arcturus COVID question.
Yes, sir.
So the Arcturus variant, are we seeing that on island?
We haven't seen, from what I've seen,
Mhm.
as far as I know, we haven't seen anything like that. We haven't been doing variant testing that I know of on the island here. All of our tests are still just rapid testing and sewer testing.
Yeah.
So I don't know of any of confirmed variant here. However, our reports still show up as really low.
Okay.
So we haven't
Okay,
seen
that's
any spike yet. So that's good news.
And then the other would just be, that I guess the Candida auris fungal infection, which is supposedly, spreading and to one of the places. Is that something that we're seeing?
I do get
Or-
updates on that. We haven't seen any Candida infection here.
Mhm.
They would inform us
Okay.
if
there's
that happened.
mandated reporting. Yeah.
It's a mandated reporting. It is one of those illnesses. Knock on wood. We haven't seen any confirmed yet.
Good. Thank you.
As far as more discussion on the wells, anybody from the audience, I see Jeff and Dan. Have you guys had a chance to look at the revised?
No, not yet.
No.
All right. Well, it is on the previous meetings packet, but I can also forward it to you again. Yeah.
Anything else about the wells from the board members?
Water company.
We forwarded it to the water company. Have we even heard back from Mark on that?
No, I know.
Michael.
Can you, yeah,
Specifically, he hasn't commented on the regs, the reg rewrite, but I know he has had some concerns about people private well sampling and what they should be doing with their sample results. So I will circle back with him
Yeah.
as far as, the comment on the regs.
thanks.
But we definitely did forward it to him. So.
Yeah.
And we haven't heard back from Curtis Barnes as a commissioner either. So.
Yeah, can we just make sure that we get those off to most of the.
Yes, I'm
all the
actually
surveyors and
putting
stuff.
it in my calendar right now. For tomorrow morning.
Anything else? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, Roberto, I wanted to mention, we also have a private well private well training class that's coming up on 4/26. And we have 65 people that are signed up, and that's done by RCAP Solutions. We reached out to them. They're experts in private wells, so we thought it was part of the education and outreach for private well owners, also for health officials, so we've got 65 people signed up. We should expect about another 40. And those are Board of Health officials from all over the state. So that's a really positive thing.
And where's that going to be held?
It's online.
It's online.
Online?
Yep. And I can make sure we send out the link
Yeah,
to
it would
anyone
be.
that's interested.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else?
Okay.
Okay, why don't we move on to the first thing, 20 Gladlands Ave. Night- Huh? Oh, yes, and for the record, Meredith Lepre is here. So next on the agenda, we'll go to 20 Gladlands nitrogen loading credit.
Yes, so the next one on the agenda is very standard nitrogen load credit. And I believe Dan Malloy is here for the client.
Good afternoon, Dan Malloy, Site Design Engineering for the applicant. As Roberto said, it's a pretty straightforward application the board has seen numerous times. We have an 80,000 square foot lot at 20 Gladlands Ave that has a well and a septic on the property. There is an existing conventional system approval there right now for 8 bedrooms. And we're applying to the board using an IEA system to get the bedroom credits to use 10 bedrooms. Very similar application that the board has reviewed and approved on numerous other properties in the same neighborhood. In terms of what the property could support, it could technically support with the variance up to 12 bedrooms. But we're only going to 10 if that makes a difference. That's it.
What was the board's recommendation? Because it wasn't in the minutes.
No, this is the one. Yeah, we have no objection to this
I
one.
mean, there wasn't anything, so I didn't know. Thank you.
Any questions for Dan or me?
Are we from now, are we leaning towards doing this? I mean, as long as they're gonna use the IA system, they automatically get automatically get other bedrooms. That's basically the reason they're doing it.
We kind of been moving in that direction,
You know, that's
as
what I
long
mean.
as it's
So
net
we-
negative.
So that's gonna be basically an automatic.
I wouldn't call it an automatic. They all still have to come here for review.
Yeah,
Every situation is different, but we've
Right.
been leaning towards
okay,
approving it.
all right, thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead, Malcolm.
Yeah, I'm just a little nervous that if we start saying this is routine, I still think it's important that we review these at this point.
Mhm.
Maybe a
Yes.
year from now, we'll be able to delegate it to the staff, but I hate to hear the word routine.
Right.
Agreed.
And this one isn't, specifically in one of our deemed watersheds like Nantucket or Nantucket Harbor where, you can't do, you can't get the credits that
Right.
those two zones, right?
Good.
Right, and this is in the wellhead, so that's why Dan's
different.
before you guys now, so and then I suppose I just want to say sometimes, but in these scenarios when it's 8 to 10 bedrooms, I mean 10 bedrooms obviously sounds like a ton, but it might not necessarily be 10 actual bedrooms. It's a total room count with all the houses. So sometimes it might be they want a gym and an office and a theater room. And well, now you're adding up all these rooms and those count towards the capacity of the septic system. So the total count might be 16, 15 rooms, and then you divide by 2 and you get 7 bedrooms, unless they're a labeled bedroom, but there might be only 5 labeled bedrooms in a 15-bedroom house. So that would be 7 bedrooms worth of capacity, but only 5 actual bedrooms. So it's sometimes something to consider. So,
Right.
Yeah, I just want to support what kind of Malcolm said, because I mean, besides nitrogen, I mean, when we're talking about septic, it's not just nitrogen. I mean, there are
Exactly.
other, and just we need to remember that.
Yeah.
And that's why, we do need, because at some point it might not be the wisest thing to do,
Yeah.
even though it looks routine.
Exactly.
So-
We will continue to bring these to the board, specifically in all of the nitrogen sensitive areas. The ones that are not in nitrogen sensitive areas, those are all covered by Title V already. So these are our local regs so they will always come here.
I also it seems like a lot of these we've been approving are so that they can put in the AI system because they have to move stuff around to put a pool in.
Yeah.
And my first feeling is we're on an island, so I don't quite understand that. Because we're surrounded by water, but also I think that the pools are not super for the environment. And so as the health department or as the Board of Health, I think we need to start thinking about like how many pools are we gonna have on this island, and how is that going to affect our water quality, and how people are emptying their pools and what chemicals they're putting in and how that is affecting our environment. I understand that not necessarily this case, but I mean, they are putting in a pool and this has come up multiple times where they're moving things around because they're putting in a pool, and how, like, I think at some point, I guess we have to talk about the whole pool situation and how those are handled, because I know that there's been pools emptied.
It
Illegal.
definitely has come up. It definitely has come up before. The new water discharge regulations were passed at the select board level. So we are now reaching out to all the pool, not the pool owners, but the pool companies on island with our new outreach coordinator to reach out to them so that they know what the new regulations are. Because the fine is no longer that simple $300 fine that we saw from Pulpus, where at that point it was $1,000, but that one was for using environmental laws. Now we have a much more robust water discharge regulation, and in pool construction, the best practices on them is to have like a dry well or something so that they can drain it and keep it all on site. The new regulation that we have requires them to have to keep the water on site. So actually, yeah, Dan and Jeff, this might come in the future as well. In case, I know you guys don't know, you guys designed the pool area, not necessarily the equipment. But just let your property owners know, the equipment has to be able to handle all the pool drainage on site. So that's the new regulation that got passed at the select board last month. So it's good stuff. But as far as this regulation,
When you say all the pool
goes-
drainage.
I'm sorry.
so if I empty a pool, where's that water going?
So that's the point. They have to keep it on site so that it can percolate on their own property. What we've been seeing for a very long time is that in order to save time, and when you're being paid hourly, time is money, by project, time is money. They are pumping at much faster rates than the percolation rate is. And a lot of times the water spills off site, goes down the street, often scouring soil and damaging our general infrastructure. So now they have to be able to percolate it on site.
Yeah, and the percolation guarantees that those chemicals that are
No,
harmful.
they have to do a dechlorination, and it has to be chemical free. It has to meet the water standards of all drinking water standard.
Okay.
So, and the National Swimming Pool Foundation has an entire process, which we refer to in the regulation, on how to remove the chemicals and do all the flocculation that they need to do.
Thank you.
Does there have to be a certain amount of square footage for this dry well to operate the way it's supposed to?
The larger the square footage, the quicker they can drain the pool. It's in their best practice, but there is no requirement on the size of the dry well.
Okay.
They don't even need a dry well if it's small enough. They
Yeah.
can do surface drainage. But as far as this variance goes, just to get us back on
Yeah,
track,
it's,
we have no objection.
I
Go ahead,
just want to
Dan.
add quickly here, just so everyone's clear, that the reason for this request here is definitely not to do with the pool. It's strictly room count. question, as John had mentioned, there's multiple buildings on the property. When you add them all together, we're over the bedroom count. There isn't actually 10 bedrooms on the property.
Thanks. I get a motion to approve.
I'll make motion for.
I get a second.
Second,
All in favor by roll call vote. Meredith Leprey,
yes.
Carrie McKenna,
Yes.
Jim Cooper,
Yes.
Malcolm McNabb,
Yes,
and Steve Visco says yes. Thanks, Dan. Okay, next up. 9 Arlington. I think Dan's on this one too.
Yes. For the record, Dan Malloy for this one. This one's a setback for the water supply, from the water supply and the property lines. Daniel is here for the client.
Yep, Dan Malloy again for the applicant. So this one's a little different than what the board would normally see for a variance request. So we're asking for relief under Title V and the Nantucket Board of Health Regulation under new construction. It's a vacant lot and they're asking to build a 1-bedroom cottage on the property. In order for them to do this, they need variance relief from the board for several things. The first being set back to a private water supply well. Regulations require a minimum 100-foot setback from a well to a septic system. Because of the property dimensions and everything that's around it and surrounding wells and septics, the best separation they can provide is approximately 87 feet. So that's one of the variance requests. There's another variance request to also ask for a property line relief setback where a septic component is typically required 10 feet from a property line. We're asking for relief to go from 10 feet to 5 feet. The reason for the relief is to try to provide as great of a separation to the well as possible. And there's also relief requested again under the local board of health regulations to do with the 100-foot setback and also to do with the nitrogen loading requirement. The lot, because it's a well and septic, we're also putting an IA system on it. So essentially, we're looking at it right here as new construction on a vacant lot. Variance relief, it's a physical variance in Title V versus the Board of Health regulations. So there's 2 variance requests in Title V. It's the well separation and property line setback. And then also the local Board of Health well separation requirement. And if the board were to consider this, we're proposing an IEA septic system, and the property would have to be deed restricted to 1 bedroom. And under Title V, the provisions for the board to review this is essentially determining whether or not what's proposed provides an equal environmental treatment, and whether or not denying it removes the property owner from essentially any use of the property. I'll leave that to you to determine how to define that. It's not defined in the regulation. I think it's up to the board's personal purview as to what you define use of the property. Unfortunately, they don't tell you what that is. I can go into a lot more detail. We did provide an extensive letter trying to outline the parameters we think it could be approved. I can go through that in great detail if we want, but if anybody's had a chance to read it, I don't want to waste a half an hour of your time reading it into the record. But I'm happy to take questions.
I think everybody's read the packet, right?
Yeah, I've read, yeah.
yes.
Is there any public?
Yeah, anybody who wants to. Okay, Jeff.
Hi, Will Kreider on behalf of Ingrid Kolb. She's one of the abutters. It's a public health issue. If you look at the abutters list, there are 10 abutting properties on Arlington and Berkeley. Very densely populated. For that reason, it seems like a potential public health hazard to allow this variance. And so all we're requesting is that the board follow the recommendation of its staff, which noted that this variance is in violation of the 100-foot rule regulation. But also to specifically point out that variances like these are generally applied to existing construction and not for new construction. And this area has a lot of small lots that if variances were allowed for construction, could be developed. So it's not really the purpose of these variances for new construction. And we ask that you follow the sound reasoning of your staff. Thank you.
My name is Jeff Blackwell. I'm here representing Clay Twombly and Joe Olson, who are direct abutters to this property. Sarah Elger is on the boat and trying to zoom in, but I don't know what her reception is like. I don't know if all the board members have seen a letter that was just submitted late yesterday by Sarah Elger, and I've made copies, and if the chair agrees, I can hand those out to you.
Yeah, I read it and seen it, but these guys,
Still have that? No, I don't think I did that.
yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
If you
Mr.
indulge,
Chair,
Okay, go ahead, Malcolm. Yep.
I haven't seen the letter, so could someone summarize it for me?
if you indulge me, I'd be happy to read it. It's not a long letter. Steve.
That's fine. Yeah, go ahead, Jeff. It's not very long.
Okay. So this is an email that was sent into the health department. Did you get this? At 7 o'clock last night. Dear Chair Visco and Director Santa Maria, I represent Clay Twombly and Joe Olson, the owners of the property at 10 Berkeley/7 Arlington. I am writing concerning the application for variances of Kevin Muldoon, trustee of KP Muldoon Family Nominee Trust for the property at 9 Arlington Street, which is on your agenda today. The notice that my clients only just received, a copy attached, is deficient in that it fails to reference the specific provisions of 310 CMR 15 Title 5, from which a variance is sought, and does not contain a statement demonstrating compliance with 310-15 410 as required under 310 CMR 15 411 1B. Because of the defective notice and the fact that it was only just received, my clients have not been able to fully explore the effect that the grant of any such variances would have on the property. That said, from what we have now seen in the packet, it is clear that these variances would have a negative impact on my client's property, and we oppose them. We also note that even if such variances were approved by the board, additional variances from the DEP would be required and should be a condition of any relief granted by this board. We would ask that the matter not be heard on the April 20th meeting and instead be continued to your May meeting so that proper notice can be given. Regardless of when the board hears the matter, however, we would ask that the board follow the health department staff's recommendation to deny these requests, and that the board adhere to its longstanding policy of not granting variances for new construction. Thank you for your attention to the matter. This application for several variances is the first in my experience to come before a board. There's a bright red line in the state and local health regulations between the preservation of a historic use. For instance, any of the properties in this area that were developed in compliance with the health regulations at that time, sometimes back in the 70s or 80s, more in the 80s. And when those septic systems fail, it is the philosophy of the state and local regulations to allow owners to maintain historic permitted use. The regulations are not intended to grant variances for new construction to allow properties that frankly should not be developed to be developed. For instance, a variance is requested for a proposed well to leach field on this property, and it is proposed to put in an IA system, but that doesn't address the proposed well that is shown on this in the submission would also be less than 100 feet from two conventional leach pits on adjoining properties. I think you're faced with a very slippery slope here. To start granting variances for new construction, you know, you take a step down that slope, and where does it end? The general historic reluctance for granting variances for new construction is a very important health and public safety provision of the state and local regulations. And I would ask that you deny the variances and not create a precedent that I think you would regret in the future. Thank you.
Any questions for Jeff or Dan?
Have other systems been considered? I mean, could you put a tight system in there? I mean, it's not ideal, but,
You can't use tight tanks for new construction.
oh, okay, that answers that one. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just answer just briefly. We've looked at every alternative in terms of separations, types of systems, where they can go, abutting properties. And the variance that generated the plan and variance in front of you today, that's the best fit based on all the allowances we could come up with to try to see what would work.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and just to kind of sum things up, it's I mean, Title V pretty specifically calls out you know, the reason for variances isn't for new construction. The reason for variances is for existing systems when repairs are done. And everybody's, and they're trying to do everything the best that they can to make the situation the best that it is, and they just can't. And that's when a variance might be granted for setbacks or something like that. So on new construction, it's the fear for me would be setting a precedent by allowing variances on new construction. So,
Mr. Chair,
Malcolm?
it's new construction. There's potential environmental risk. I'd be very uncomfortable granting this variance. I mean, my colleague has said it better than I.
Right.
We have a hand up. I'm Sarah
Okay.
Alger. Sarah, you should be good to go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to point out, it is a very dangerous precedent you'd be setting. You'd also be creating a situation, I believe, where my clients would then be put into a variant situation themselves should they ever need to do repairs to their own system. And that just seems wrong to me, that someone can do something by variance on an adjacent property and put a conforming property into a variance situation. It's going to have a very negative effect on their property, and I think it should be denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? And it's, you know, it's kind of a bummer you own a lot that is just sitting there after you've owned it for many years, and then ample time was given when Title V was changing in 1995, and specifically, and Jeff knows, and when I worked for my father, we went around to a lot of these small lots, whether they were in Nantucket or Tom Nevers, and wells were put in and septics were put in and before any construction was started to protect the lots because they knew things were changing. And, you know, Title V revision in 95 was specifically to deal with, you know, public health and basically protecting the environment. It's unfortunate they didn't do something, but the new construction thing is not meeting any of those minimum standards, is, you know, would be a denial just on that. So does anybody else have anything to say?
Well, if you pass this with him, you're gonna have to pass it to everyone else to come down the road in the same situation. So why make a motion to deny?
Second,
Okay, all in favor by roll call vote? Malcolm McNabb,
aye.
Jim Cooper,
Aye.
Carrie McKenna.
Aye.
Meredith Lepre,
Aye.
and Steve Visco says aye.
Thank you.
And thanks, Dan.
That's it.
Okay, I guess that's it. We went
Yeah.
through everything.
That's-
Does anybody have anything they want to bring up, ask Roberto or?
Oh, Meredith, you weren't here for the director's report. A real quick update. We did hire a new public health nurse. So she starts on May 1st. Her name is Erin Schrader. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to have her contact all of the school nurses in order to help coordinate work there.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Second.
So moved.
All by roll call, Malcolm McNabb,
Aye.
Jim Cooper,
Aye.
Carrie McKenna,
Aye.
Meredith Lepre,
Aye.
and Steve Visco says aye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.